Hello, community, and welcome back to another Keeping It Real with Dr. Anita podcast. I am your host, Dr. Anita Polite Wilson, C Suite Trusted Advisor, Board Director, and Diversity, Inclusion, and Belonging Strategy Consultant, helping members of the C Suite and their teams reframe diversity conversations from difficult to different. And if I seem super excited, it's because I am. This is Black History Month, and the theme is African Americans and the Arts. And I'm very excited to have as our guest for this series of real conversations from the C-suite, Ms. Azhelle Ward, the Toy Coach. Welcome back, Toy Coach.
I'm ready. Let's do it. Let's go.
Let's do it. All right. We will dispense with the preliminaries and jump right in because I like to make my guests happy. All right. So in our last conversation, we talked about the toy industry and R&D and focus groups and how even though they have been somewhat progressive, we could see a little bit more. This time, I want to talk about the difference in how your expertise was or has been valued pre and post the Black Lives Matter movement. And we all know that upon the murder of George Floyd, a lot of companies were committing dollars. They were making all these diversity statements and coming up with all of these programs to support Black businesses in particular and businesses and entrepreneurs of color overall. And now that it's 2024, the landscape is shifting. Not only are we seeing that chief diversity officers are falling out of favor, assuming that that role is still there, it's being renamed, the focus has changed. So tell us what you're seeing.
I mean, personally, this is all personal. But personally, I saw such a huge lift with Black Lives Matter, but at the same time, I had just started my company. So I was head down, focused. I saw what was going on, but I didn't realize that I was getting that lift from that. And at this time I did a lot of a podcast on the ripple effect of racial bias in the toy industry. And it was a really powerful episode. People shared it, and I gained just incredible connections and visibility, TV spots, like so much stuff from people wanting to show that they were diverse. People wanted me to do talks. They were willing to pay. It was like a whole thing. Post the movement, I just am shocked at how it's so different. And I think I probably would have realized it and maybe capitalized on it more had I started my business sooner, and realized what the big change. But after it, I was just like, oh, this is exactly what it was like in corporate. Like, oh, this is exactly the same thing. And it just feels, it feels a little gated at times. It feels a little closed off, but there are a few key people in my space that supported me from the beginning through Black Lives Matter and to this day, which I have to shout out the Women in Toys organization, because they've supported and seen me for my educational resources from day one. But there are some people that came in and really just used. It felt like used. Had me rethinking my business strategy of, oh, should I do D&I? Should I be offering these workshops and like spending my time creating programs for them that were never going to be recurring revenue sources? They were just flashes in the pan. And I don't know if it was maybe I'm still learning this lesson, so I might not be articulating it the best, but it was a rude awakening. I was like, oh, and even in the toy space, like Target came out as like the biggest supporter of Black owned businesses. And we saw it, and it wasn't even just that they were bringing Black brands into Target. They were helping them find factories and retool their products so they could be retail ready, making them smaller, making the price point work and all that stuff. They and other retailers now have a great splash on their website every Black History Month to promote our products, which is an incredible privilege if your product gets pulled up there. But even these programs have started to raise the bar of what they're going to let in. You have to have a certain amount of sales, and I've heard different numbers, so I'm not going to share that exactly, but you have to have a certain number of sales to be considered for some of these programs. And I mean, I guess that's just what's bound to happen, because now people are seeing there are so many talented Black people in the toy industry, and they're like, oh, we didn't realize it was going to be a floodgate like this, but it is. And I also still see people posting images with no diversity at all. Like, come join our community, and everyone's white. And I'm like, how do you not see this? There's no Indians. There's no Asians. There's no black people. There's nobody. I don't understand how they don't see it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's
You had I didn't want to cut you off because you had prefaced your comments by saying this is personal. You said this is gonna be from a personal space.
Yeah.
And you just mentioned the fact that, there was the possibility for corporations to see the dollars and the floodgates opening up based on the prevalence of an untapped market that they didn't realize, which were Black toy makers.
Yeah.
Tell me some more about the personal ahas that you experienced. What was the deepest one that you can recall?
I mean, I don't remember who posted it. And I don't remember what organization it was, but there was some organization that posted a photo and it was like their new main photo, and there was just no diversity. And and then there was another moment in the toy industry. There's this thing called the Hall of Fame, and I attended the award show that gives out that award for the first time. So when I got home, I was like curious about the Hall of Fame, and the lack of diversity in the Hall of Fame over the years was just like sad. It was sad. And I showed my husband's Latino American or Latin American, and he was like, well, Azhelle, the toy industry like started, these awards so long ago. So back then they weren't going to give them to women or people of color. But still, it was like looking through the history of all the people that won. And then that year in the diversity and inclusion category, a white person won. And I was like, I don't know what is going on here, but somebody needs to take a closer look. Like, you shouldn't even be able, I don't know. I don't feel like you should be able to even be in the category if you're not in the community. I don't know. Or maybe that award needed to be defined a little bit more. Like, what does change maker and diversity and inclusion mean? Like, I don't know. That really bothered me. Yeah.
So what do you think it's going to take to change the space?
Time, just time. Eventually we'll all look the same. And then really time. I'm patient. It's just a shame when you see such talented Black creators hustling so hard because, they're not being compensated enough that they have to work so hard, or maybe they just love to hustle. We don't know. But yeah, it's a shame. Like, I see some people in my space and I'm like, everyone should know your name. Like, you're so talented. Yeah.
So in our next conversation, we're going to talk about the toy coach and what that means and some of your clientele. So I don't want you to jump there just yet, but I would like to know why do you keep doing it? Why do you get up every day and keep doing this from a very personal perspective? Because to your point, eventually, yes, we're all going to look alike, but there's still that we still have to wait for time to march on. Yeah. So what keeps you here?
You got to make life worth living. Yeah. And I love kids and I love toys because I like kids and I love teaching. So I went to like a thrift store and I rediscovered this old Polly Pocket that I used to have, and it brought me to like misty eyes because I remembered instantly like when I played with it, where I was, how it felt. And that was this reminder to me, and I'm getting goosebumps talking about it now, that what we're doing really matters. You might make something where it might not be the biggest toy that anyone's ever going to like talk about. Like, it's not going to be like the Squishmallow or the Tickle Me Elmo, but it might make somebody cry when they see it in their 30s. Like, that's a powerful impact to have on somebody's life. So if I'm a part of that journey in any way, it's a worthwhile journey.
Wow. Well, that is a good place to pause, community. Think about what makes your journey worthwhile. And we're going to be coming back for our third and final conversation with Azhelle Wade, the toy coach. In the meantime, go on back and listen to this one again because it was pretty profound. And you can do that by going to the website, dranita.com. On the landing page at the top in the center, click on the link that says Keep It a Real Podcast. And while you're there, I encourage you to check out my services and my resources. And as always, I'm going to ask you to do me a favor. Please get in the flow, follow, like, and overshare any podcast. It helps you reframe diversity conversations from difficult to different. Share them with your network. In the meantime, this is Dr. Anita reminding you to stay blessed and keep it real.